I have beaten Halo Infinite's campaign. I have a lot to say about it, including whether or not this is going to be included in my game of the year. So much here to talk about, so let's dive into it. What is going on, everybody? It is Randall Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with another video. I hope everybody is having an incredible day. If you guys can do me a huge favor, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and please share this review out on social media. It means a lot to me. Thank you guys for all the continued support. Alright, so as you guys obviously know, this video is going to be all about Halo Infinite's campaign, my thoughts, my review, and what I think about 343's latest entry into the series. Now, for those of you that don't want spoilers, I'll just say right up front that I really enjoyed this campaign. It's easily 343's best. I had so much fun going through the open world, trying to figure out exactly what the mystery behind Cortana was, what Esrim and the Banished were doing on the ring, and in fact, when I actually started to play this game for review, I basically beat it in 2 sittings and I could not stop playing. There are moments within the story that I got goosebumps. There was a moment in the story where I actually sort of got emotional. However, the game does have some flaws. It's not a perfect experience by any stretch of the imagination, and those flaws might severely impact how you enjoy the game. I definitely feel that some people won't like how the mystery is doled out. I definitely feel that some people really won't like the ending at all, but that's all going to be a subjective experience for everybody. But if you just want to know, I think this is the best Halo campaign that 343's made. It's definitely probably the most fun Halo I've ever played, and that's going back to Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3, and Halo Reach. Like, I just enjoyed so much going through the open world, like using the equipment like the grapple shot to get into different combat scenarios, use all the different weapons to defeat all the brutes, jackals, and grunts. It is a lot of fun to play through, and I think those things really elevated above its flaws. Now, as for Game of the Year, like I mentioned in the title, presumably, and in my tweet, for me right now, Halo Infinite is in my Game of the Year consideration. Unfortunately, it didn't exactly rise all the way to #1, and I do think maybe some of its flaws and how the story is told might have affected it a little bit in being the overall #1, but right now it is definitely in a group of games where I can say Halo Infinite is among the 3 best games I played this year, and who knows, maybe another playthrough will slide it all the way up into my favorite game of the year. One final thing I want to say before we get into the grittier details of the review is that Halo Infinite really exceeded all my expectations for the game, but some of my complaints keep it from being a masterpiece. This next part of the review is going to be a little bit weird because I've already talked at length about how Halo Infinite's open world works, and that video still holds true today, but I really don't want to have to repeat myself and explain how the open world works, how Valor works, what different type of missions you can do in the open world. So I'm just going to say that I think open world really does fit Halo. I think Halo's 30 seconds of fun between melee, shooting, grenades, and the addition of the grapple hook now and the equipment makes it more fun than ever. I never was bored in the open world. I loved exploring every single nook and cranny that the ring offered me. There's just something really cool about getting into a small skirmish between jackals, getting a Spartan core to upgrade your equipment, and then running off in a different direction and finding another battle waiting for you. It never got old once during my 20 hours of playing through the game, although I did not complete every side activity the game had to offer. I do want to say that perhaps the best and most rewarding side activity that I found in the game was the high-value targets, where you can fight an enemy who has a specific reward, a better weapon, and those fights can be extremely challenging, especially on the harder difficulties. Boss fights in general, I thought, were pretty damn good in the game overall, but I really enjoyed those high-value target missions. But when we're talking about the open world, this is going to be where one of the complaints a lot of people have, and one I do share a little bit, and that's the lack of diversity. If you've seen the preview video, you've seen the trailers, you've basically seen exactly what the open world is going to look like from the start to finish. It basically looks like the Pacific Northwest, evergreen trees and all that stuff, and you don't get a desert biome or a snow biome or anything like that. And even the dungeons, when you go into those Forerunner installations, they look exactly the same too. So one of those complaints is the lack of diversity throughout the campaign. It does make sense within a story perspective because the entire game takes place within the same area. It's not like you're going from one side of the ring all the way to the other side of the ring. The game's open world and missions all take place super close to one another, so it makes sense. But when you judge Halo Infinite to other Halo games, the lack of diversity is definitely disappointing. Now let's talk about the characters, and this may or may not be a sore spot for some people when they play it. Some people are going to like one character over the other, or some people are going to say that one character's not as fleshed out as they would like, and maybe that is true, but I'm going to start with the villain, Eshram. And I gotta say, I've heard people critique him as a Saturday morning cartoon villain, but I would disagree. I actually loved every interaction that I had with Eshram. I would watch all of his holograms as he taunts the Chief. I really enjoyed his character because I felt like I knew why he was doing everything he was doing. So I enjoyed Eshram. Then we have Master Chief's companions, the pilot, and the weapon. The pilot was honestly a little bit grating to me. I didn't really enjoy his character or his arc. However, I actually really enjoyed the weapon. All the interactions between the weapon, Chief, and the pilot. I enjoyed her arc even though it also was predictable. And we have Master Chief himself. I honestly think Chief talked more in this game than he ever has in any of the previous Halo games. And you know what? I am here for that. Give me super talkative Master Chief. Give me a Chief that jokes around. I loved his dialogue, and I loved his character progression in this game. Give me more Master Chief. The more and more I played through Halo Infinite, I came to the conclusion that Halo Infinite was a lot like Sea of Thieves and less like other Halo games. And I know you're probably thinking to yourself, wait a minute, what do you mean by that? You see, in other Halo games, everybody had the same reference point. So when people talk about Halo 2, everybody drove the tank over the bridge in that Mombasa level. People have reference points and they say, remember how awesome it was to do this thing? And you'd be like, yeah, it was totally awesome to do that thing. But Halo Infinite really isn't structured like that. The open world is the open world, and you can go at it any way you want. Sure, you could bring a tank into a fight and destroy enemies like that, but somebody else might take a different approach. Maybe they're sniping from the mountains. So in that regard, a lot of Halo Infinite's open world design and some of the actual levels within the Forerunner dungeons are more structured like Sea of Thieves, where you have all the weapons at your disposal. It's up to you to write your own Halo story, and that's where it differs from other Halo games. Some people will end up hating that. Some people want that amusement park ride where you're just strapped into the ride and it's doing the loop-de-loops, and afterwards you can talk about the ride to your friends because they experience the same thing. But Halo Infinite is much more like Sea of Thieves, where you write how the story goes. You basically create your own ride, and I thought that was very interesting, and I think it might be polarizing to some people. Even though I mentioned that this is 343's best game, clearly way better than Halo 4, way better than Halo 5, and I think they have the formula down. Perhaps one day they'll make a game that is better than any of the Bungies. I did have some criticism with a couple things within the campaign itself and how the story was told. One thing is 343 loves to do the rule of three, meaning you need to get this power cord, open up the store, but you're not going to do it just once. You're going to do it multiple times, and you're going to do it multiple times within the campaign. They kind of did that a little bit too much. But another thing they did a lot, you're going to be pressing down buttons to insert the weapon into virtually everything all the time, and that got a little bit old. Now, I know they did it for storytelling reasons, because the weapon is a new character and you need to get used to her, but honestly, Master Chief is inserting the weapon into those consoles a lot, and sometimes I just kind of rolled my eyes about how often you actually had to do that. This bears repeating, even though I mentioned it earlier, but there are a couple moments within this campaign where I had goosebumps. Even though I had some issues with the storytelling, I care so much about the characters and the lore within this game. In fact, there was one moment within the campaign that I started to get a little bit emotional, and that is something that never happens at all for me while playing essentially any video game. But that's my love of the franchise. That's my love of Halo. That's my love of these characters coming through. With that said, I am not the biggest fan of how the mysteries of Cortana and the Banished and the Ring and all that stuff is handled in this game. And I certainly don't like the fact that it seems that everything from Halo 5 was essentially explained off screen. It's almost like 343 didn't know what to do after that game, so they just kind of hand wiped it away almost as if it didn't exist and we don't have to see the repercussions. It's all explained away in holograms and audio logs, and I didn't care for it. In fact, I almost feel robbed in a sense, and I really want to get into spoilers, but there's something that happens to me that is just, I didn't like whatsoever. I felt robbed as a fan of the franchise. Talk about the ending of the game, because some people will really like it and some people will hate it. A lot of people might come out and say that it's an abrupt ending, but I don't think so. The game told a complete beginning, middle, and end. And while, yes, they do hint at things to come, and they definitely set up a sequel tease, in my opinion, the ending wasn't abrupt whatsoever. So at the end of the day, Halo Infinite exceeded all my expectations. I really had so much fun playing through the entirety of this game, from the open world activities you can do to the story missions. It's going to be in my top 5, maybe even still my game of the year. Some of those issues, some of the game's flaws, whether it's the diversity or whether it's how they told the story and how it all concluded, especially the part where I felt robbed as a fan, it's preventing it from being the overall #1 game of the year for me. I would give Halo Infinite an 8.5. Anyways, guys, that's my review for Halo Infinite. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Share this out on social media. Hit that join button. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I truly appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one. Later, guys.